All right, let's kick this off then. Thanks everyone for joining Office Hours today. I will be the lead host in this meeting because Jim is having some trouble and not feeling very well. So yeah, let's kick things off. Goldberg, I first see your little post up here that you talked about a piece for written by Dan Larimer. Do you want to talk about it first?
Mm. Let me finish chewing, please.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. In the meantime, maybe any of you guys can make the other channels aware of the office hours going on. If people have any questions, tell them to hop on here and we'll sort them out.
So I think, I found this post by Dan Larimer during the week. It's someone I highly respect, even if many people disregard his contributions to the space. But he made a very valid point that right now there's no decentralized apps because there's always decentralized parts. Especially he refers to the data providing that which is solved by Graph for Ethereum, but obviously not for EOS, which is what he is referring to. And he made some. He made me think that we as a community would be able to provide a bunch of more tools around this graph indexing core service. For instance, we could empower people to move their dApps from one chain to another chain when they see that they cannot operate on this high gas cost environment. When we support this change by the indexing node, which we already do, and also abstract away the other differences. Like most people have ETH wallets, so every DApp targets ETH Ethereum users, and the core of the blockchains, they are more or less the same when you go to Celo or to XDAI or whatever EVM compatible chain there is. But users wouldn't have a wallet there and they would have to pay for gas, but gas is very cheap, so you could employ some relayer network where users send transactions and then the relayer sends a transaction to the blockchain on behalf of the user. And then you basically find the same environment as you would find on an Ethereum network, but you can build different apps that don't have the requirement to make like a lot of money for the users for them to try them out. And what's basically missing, and this is the point, is that someone should piece those things together, like make some boilerplate starting GitHub repositories that plug some existing technologies together and allow people to develop apps using GraphNode in a way that abstracts away from the underlying blockchain. Yeah, something like this was spinning in my head when I posted this a couple of days ago.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it makes a good point, to be honest. Do you think there's any sort of options for us to spin in that way? Like any recommendations you can have on this subject?
gas relay networks would be like the one part to get this platform independability, so that the app providers would be able to pay for the gas of their users and have some in-browser wallet. I think I read something about Taurus, and somehow to be fully decentralized, somehow users would need a way to pay for the graph indexing services. All of this is a little bit out because there is no real decentralized network running the graph right now. It's only this one subgraph, so I'm not sure when this will be resolved. And
Relatively
then
soon.
there is this fashion to make boilerplate GitHub repositories, like Starter. Something you put like a bunch of technologies together, concatenate them with a dash, and then you add Starter, and then when people search for some of these technologies, then they basically get batteries included template, so to say, which they can build out to make their apps. And this was what I was thinking about, to start building such Starter boilerplate repositories, putting together some front-end technologies and, of course, smart contract development tools and testing tools, and then it would be natural to just add components to make a subgraph and gas relay networks, and maybe even deploy some gas relay networks, because I think they are not generally available for most of these other chains. Once I was working for one of these alternative blockchains, and they basically have nothing, so I think you have to help them a bit, and even can maybe make some money from it. Yeah. So, but it's more or less like collecting best practices and put some GitHub repositories together that other people can just clone and then build into their own projects.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Like something sort of like easier onboarding for developers, maybe. But yeah, I definitely agree. That's a great idea. So with that out of the way, I guess we can talk about ETH nodes in general. Like, so before we jump into what Nuviba posted about Emerald Pay, yeah, like basically the load balancing tool. Has anyone followed any other the developments lately in the archive node world? I know Goldberg and Stake Machine are pretty deep into following those things.
I was going through the GitHub repository of TurboGas today to see what they're doing there, and I saw that they actually have fixes for trace call and trace call many APIs. They also support trace filter RPC calls, and I'm wondering what's still missing actually. I don't remember anymore. Maybe someone can help me out with that here. What trace calls in the RPC we actually need to support to GraphNode?
I think it's Ford the best answer for you.
It's just the trace filter method that is used for call handlers. So if that's implemented, then we could probably start testing with the graph node using a call handler subgraph.
There were pull requests from like 7 months ago for trace filter. I'm not sure if that ever made it to the main branch.
By the way, Ford, Cohen was asking in TurboGeth channel if there's a curl or HTTP example on testing trace filter support.
Yeah, I can come up with a curl example. I think I have one sitting around somewhere.
That would be nice, yeah.
Yeah, I'll share that today. That'll be useful.
Yeah, and then we can kick off testing TurboGeth if they say it's working. Damn, if that thing works, that would be absolutely brilliant. Just imagine having Open Ethereum like functionality in only like 900 gigabytes instead of 8 terabytes. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, on Ethereum nodes, Open Ethereum has published an update to their release, which is quite important with regards to the Berlin hard fork, because apparently they did something wrong in the Berlin blocks stuff. So if you're running Open Ethereum, you have basically 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that you actually are on the correct version.
Do you mean the update 3.2.1? I guess we lost Cohen. Let's give him a few seconds. Yeah, latest is 3.2.1 last time I checked as well. So if we upgrade to that, then we should be okay. I believe that hotfix was due to an initial sync bug, and they addressed it quite quickly. Someone asked in the chat, what TurboGeth feature are you talking about? Yeah, trace filter. It's used by like, I don't know, 70% of the subgraph base out there. Just because it makes your life a lot easier to develop and work with Ethereum related data. And right now only Open Ethereum and Parity are supporting it, but it looks like TurboGeth is going that way as well. You do need archive and tracing, or not Open Ethereum node, but you can use TurboGeth if it's working, of course, but it still needs to be archive. But as far as I remember, you don't need, you don't have any other option with TurboGeth, so it's only archive.
Yeah, I've not seen anything but archive on TurboGeth. Should be able to also run an Rinkeby node with it, archive also. But they say that they only test with mainnet. But in theory, all the other networks should work as well.
Do you wanted to say something, Sebastian?
Yeah, I didn't hit the button right.
Yeah.
So 6 days ago or so, TurboGeth was releasing, and in the release messages they mentioned that now supported. I always miss the button, right?
Yeah, you do. Buy a new Mac, mate.
In the release notes of the last version, TurboGeth guys mentioned that they support Berlin hard fork on every network now.
Yeah,
so
I can see
think
that.
they also that's the trick.
That's so
Goldberg,
cool.
is your information on TurboGeth supporting trace filter this pull request from August last year? Is that the latest you have? Because then it's not supported. I remember from back then it was sort of implemented, but it was not implemented in Go. It was still implemented in JavaScript, and request time was something between 20 and 30 seconds, which is obviously not anything usable. I'm pretty sure they've been working on it since, but yeah, we would need something far more recent than this information to say, okay, there is a good chance that it's now actually functional.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, then I really have to dig a bit deeper. I just searched for trace in the pull request and the closed ones. So
When
Yeah,
was it
one of-
merged? Oh, it merged on August 29th, yeah. Quite a long time ago.
Yeah, that's why I'm quite sure that this is going to be the old implementation. That it works in theory, but it's not usable because the RPC response takes absurd long. I mean, of course, 30 seconds is nothing in a human life, but in terms of computers, that's not usable.
Yeah, fair enough. Hopefully
again,
they
throw
come
an
up.
insane amount of pattern in.
Yeah, I noticed the questions, Jim. I'll get to them in a bit. I actually answered one. Alright, let me switch now from the topic of the ETH nodes and address some questions from the chat. So first of all, we have a question from Raviteya. It says, we are looking to become indexers and trying to do that step by step. With all of you guys' support, we'll be to be the indexes into testnet. We are exploring further and would like to understand what are roles and responsibilities of indexers. Anyone here wants to address this question, or should I go forward? I guess I will answer it if none of you hops on. So the role is to provide data for any developer or DApp or anyone that wants to consume data from a certain DApp, basically. So let's say the biggest problem with the data in the Ethereum blockchain and blockchains in general is that even though the data is public and on the surface it looks to be easily I don't know how to call it, like easily accessible, in reality it isn't, because that said data is sort of mixed between in all the blocks. And for example, a block mined on Ethereum could contain like 30 transactions and 40 interactions with like 100 different smart contracts, and then you have all this data being mixed all across the blockchain and not in a single place. And reading that set data from the blockchain is a pain in the ass because it's painfully slow to read it straight from the blockchain. So you need that data to be organized and then served back. So it's basically someone in the general chat yesterday was making a really interesting and correct approach to this topic, and he said that blockchain are basically optimized for writing data and not for reading data, and Graph optimizes that set data for reading it further on down the line, which is really good because like there's nothing out there that does what Graph is doing. So this is the role of the indexer. They take that data from the blockchain and they organize it properly and then serve that data to whoever needs it. As for responsibilities of the indexers, I would say they would need, first of all, to make sure that that data is accurate and their data is not corrupted. And I believe this is the most crucial aspect of an indexer responsibility. But if anyone else wants to add something to what I said, Cohen maybe, Jim, Pat, Ford, anyone?
That was a great overall description. I mean, we could probably get into detail and take this whole session just talking about what indexers do, but I think that's a good way to leave it. I also want to point out, I don't know if the user who asked that question is actually on this call, so maybe
He's
they'll
not,
listen
but
to
the call is
audio
recorded, so it's fine. He will
Cool.
watch the recording, so yeah, that would be cool.
One thing I would like to add to this is that there is a lot of gas saving going on the Ethereum blockchain, so that the data that would normally be stored in a variable in the smart contract often is just included as a parameter to the method call in the smart contract, so that it can actually not be really accessed by reading the smart contract, but it can be passed out by the GraphNode indexer using these trace filter thingies, and then build like a separate database which contains all the information that would have been too expensive to store in a smart contract directly.
Yeah, indeed, that's a fair point right there. Yeah.
Related to that, actually, I believe with the recent Berlin hard fork, storage calls onto the contract have become more expensive. So there's potentially more incentive for contract developers to use that pattern you mentioned, where they're not storing on the contract storage and instead utilizing events and subgraphs to store their data.
Yeah, a store and a self-destruct will not be refundable from Berlin onwards. So all the transactions, or the majority of the transactions that use the store functions will be a lot more expensive. Basically, whenever you hit a transaction, it runs the cost of that transactions almost close to the gas limit, and then refunds, like, I don't know, whatever the part for store and the other functions are. And after the Berlin hard fork, we'll see a massive increase in fees paid for that, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. So moving forward, the same guy actually asks something else. Can we create some account kind of stuff for administrators and operators in testnet or mainnet? Yes, you do have the operator wallet, which kind of acts like an administrator. I believe you can only set one operator per indexer account, but that operator wallet is basically it basically has limited functionality. It can only allocate and deallocate and collect the query fees for specific allocations, but it cannot, like, it doesn't have control over your stake at all. It can't move the funds, and it only holds Ethereum for transaction for gas fees. So I could call that an administrator, I guess. But other than that, I don't know if you're referring to something else, or if I might have misunderstood your question. All right. Moving on. There's someone asking. There's two guys actually asking about the grants, information about the grants, and if there are gonna be more interviews, or how is the process going thus far. Martin, I don't know if you're here and or if you can talk, but would be nice if you can give us an update. But if not, I'll reach to you afterwards.
Can you repeat the question?
It was just about the grants and the status of them, how their the further process will be like, if there are gonna be more interviews, and if we're on track on the latest update made by Eva a while ago.
For sure, yeah, we were definitely on track. Actually, Eva had to leave this office hours call because she's finalizing a lot of details of the grant, so there will be a lot of news very shortly.
Awesome.
Very soon.
That's really great to hear then.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't give more exact details, but
It's fine. It's all we needed. Thank you.
no problem.
All right, let's move forward. Jazz Gamer asks, is someone using Ethereum providers load balancing? And he posted a link towards the sharding part of the docs. What setup of nodes are you using, and what is the best setup? Anyone here dug deeper into sharding by any chance? Because I haven't.
Yeah, I read it, but it's not about load balancing the Ethereum nodes. It's a different way to organize the connections and the data. So basically, it's a way that you can split. I mean, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding from reading that document is that you can split the data that your indexer sends to Postgres into different databases.
Yes.
That's one aspect from it. And you can set all kind of rules like, okay, anything that is on mainnet goes to this database, or anything that's coming from this indexer goes to that database. So you can make rules like that. And other than that, right now we are configuring, basically, if we have multiple indexes and multiple query nodes, we are configuring them each individually. We are putting RPC endpoints in them. And this new way of doing things, as I understand it, is you make one central configuration file and then load that into each indexer, and based on the node ID, indexer and query node, and based on the node ID, it will follow a certain pattern. Like it will connect to certain RPC endpoints on whatever networks you have defined, and it will take on certain subgraphs, and it will store them in the corresponding database. That's what I understand. So my understanding, it's not some kind of failover system that we talked about last time, but I hope that might still come.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing to have, I guess.
Yeah, so just to add to that, that's a great description. So right now in the hosted service, we've been using the sharding to help us expand to the different chains, so we don't have all of our chains on one Postgres instance. So this has allowed us to really scale the hosted service, and I imagine it'll be a nice tool for you guys as well.
Yeah, indeed. May I ask you a question, Ford? Not sure if you know the answer of it, but can you actually, I believe it's possible, but just making sure, can you actually host, like if you're using sharding, can you actually host the like multiple Postgres instances on multiple machines, or do they have to be on the same machine for them to work?
They can be on multiple machines. Basically, you have a config where you supply the
URL, right?
The IP,
yeah.
the URL.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of up to you how you do that networking setup.
All right, that's really nice.
Yeah, when I was reading that, I could clearly see how it would benefit the hosted service, but I'm sort of wondering, how was this mostly intended for hosted service, or is this also intended for indexer mainnet? As I see, this this feels for me targeted at very large scale operations, which obviously the hosted service is, but we might not be on the Indexer mainnet.
Yeah, it may be essentially a premature optimization for your indexer infrastructures at this point in time. Like you said, it was really designed for a single indexer to handle the whole network. That being said, as we move forward to a larger set of subgraphs and a potentially more diverse set of networks and subgraphs, I think even smaller indexers will be able to create more efficient setups using this.
Yeah, indeed. And it's also great for like keeping track of what subgraphs you have. If you automatically deploy them, like let's say you want to start indexing a bunch of subgraphs from other networks, you don't want all of them to be held in the same database because of, I don't know, like it's easier for you to like visualize them separately and know exactly like, hey, this went down, let's investigate. And to me, that's a really good thing to have, in my opinion. Let me read. Corin, want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you around the sort of failover kind of, yeah, basically if this new sharding that's there in the new version, does it or will it include failover when a node fails, like an RPC endpoint fails?
No, that's a separate thing. I am hoping to get that in maybe next week though. That PR that's been around for a while for retrying across your providers, so you'll be able to supply, for instance, like multiple mainnet nodes, and then if there's a failure on one, it'll retry to the other. But that is separate from the sharding work.
Wouldn't that go under the graph node? And yeah, actually, it's graph node related, not necessarily database related.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's really nice to have. Yeah.
Yeah, in this database sharding, is there some kind of plan? Because you can stipulate for each shard, you can stipulate a write database and then several read replicas. Is there some kind of plan that imagine that in a given shard, the write database goes down, that it automatically can switch over to a different, either use a read replica and start using that as a write access, or either have some spare database like a failover database that it would start using if the write database of a shard goes down?
I like that thought. That's not how it's automated right now, but using the config, you can do that pretty quickly. So in the config, you like set the primary database and the read replica databases. So you can have, for instance, like an extra read replica sitting around that you're not using that you can put into rotation if you need to scale. You could also, since those read replicas are, have the same data as the primary, you could theoretically switch the primary over to the read replica using that config. But there is not like an automated failover process for that yet. I could see that being built in though. Not easy, but that would be an interesting proposal.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Anything that sort of helps with automatically dealing with failure in some part of the infrastructure, I think it's only gonna help us, especially if we imagine in the near future also handling a whole lot of subgraphs. Yeah, that would be great if that can be at least checked out, if there's some kind of path to achieving that.
Yeah, and just for everyone else, I think we've kind of mixed across two things here. We have sharding, which is separate databases, and rules that allow the subgraphs to be applied to those databases based on their names or their network. And that is a little bit separate than the read replicas. So that would be on a specific shard. We have a primary database and a read replica. The primary is being written to, and the read replicas are for the query nodes and are only read from for queries. So just a little bit of background in case anyone's curious about that.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions related to these topics, or should we move on? I guess we move on, judging by the crickets noise. So Sebastian asks, when do we get GIP02? The answer is soon, TM. By Jim. But yeah, that's a really good topic. Should we all discuss about the outcome of the GIP02? I've seen Brandon made a forum post last night that gave us a bit more clarity in response to the GIP02. Yeah, so a TLDR is that the implementation is postponed because from what I've read, they want to implement thawing period, and they depend on the actually the audits that have to be scheduled. But I want to discuss about Pete from Luna Nova reply in that thread. Let me just open it really quick. I'll give you guys a link. Oh yeah, Jim already posted it, never mind. So he, in this thread, he makes it a little bit clear that there's a lot of financial struggle with indexes right now, given that the this upgrade was delayed for I believe we're running for almost 3 months in mainnet, and during that, like in most of the indexes also have like 6 months of testnet in the back, and those costs have been constantly been accumulated. And he points out a few great things here. But if any of you have written the have read the post that he made there, I kind of want to discuss about this a little bit further and diving into details. Anyone wants to jump in for some talks around this? Maybe Colin or Sebastian?
He mentions people are thinking about shutting down their indexer. So who are those people? Like, is anybody on this call?
I believe I saw like 2 or 3 guys that have mentioned that in general chat or like in the indexes channels, but I don't remember their names. Does anyone remember them?
I'm thinking about it just from a like peace of mind standpoint. I just feel a lot better, you know, just doing it, get it over with, get the rewards out, start a new indexer, done, you know, just wash my hands clean and
yeah.
move
Well,
forward.
you see, the problem is that you're screwing over all your delegates by doing that, and
I don't have many anyways, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess for you that's a good thing, but most of us, like, we have like, I don't know, 250 people that are delegating to us. So imagine if we suddenly shut down all the nodes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just part of it, you know.
Yeah.
But should it be that way is the question.
Yeah, indeed, good question. It is this way just because the basically it was never intended to be this way, right? So it was discovered after the initial audits for mainnet, if I remember correctly, and it wasn't too much time to get this fixed and also approved and audited before mainnet launch. So this is why we're here.
I think what really bothers me is that we have a community vote. We got 99%. There was a lot of time for delegators to stand up and say no, we don't want that. Now this vote is not implemented because of like out of vote discussions, and I don't really have a problem with like 28 days thawing period, and I even can see that it's somehow fair, but I'm really afraid that this will take like another 3 months. Like another 3 months, then it's already June, and that would already be quick because the changes are much bigger, I think, than for just like letting indexers withdraw. Do we have any estimations about how long this will take now for it?
Not really. There's nothing in the forum that gave us any estimate, like any clear estimate. But you've pointed some really good things in my opinion. Like we had 99% of the votes voting in favor of this, and only a bunch of vocal people in the forum, and basically that part of the vocal people affected the outcome of the 99.28 or something % of the votes on chain, which doesn't seem like a really fair thing to use and to like, I don't know, you get my point. It's weird, and it sets a weird premise for this delay. It's just my honest opinion. I don't have anything to say about the thawing period. I couldn't care less if it's there or if it's not. But the only problem that I have with this is that it will delay the implementation, and it doesn't affect me personally because like it does not affect me in any way, but like there's people that have accumulated a ton of taxes and a ton of operational expenses that they've paid from their pockets from basically July last year, right? And I don't know if they can keep holding on. But yeah, I guess if they made it thus far, they probably will keep going.
One comment in the thread was about somehow doing the upgrade to 2 and then doing to 4 later. In the meantime, until 4 is audited, and the issue pointed out was that it would somehow increase the state bloat, and like I didn't really understand that because in my head, any additional state storage for the rewards destination would also be included in JIP 4. So if anybody has like a technical understanding of why that would occur, because personally I don't really think that would happen, and I would like vote also to do 2 now and then change to 4 when it's ready. I think that would be a good solution.
You mean Brandon mentioning that it will add some friction and bloat the contracts?
Yeah, that's not like, if the storage is included for the rewards destination in JIP 4, which I assume it would be, because so many people have token locks, I don't see a case where that wouldn't be included. Then there's no storage bloat. Like that's not a thing for upgradable contracts.
Interesting. I don't know if there's anyone here that can answer that question for you, though.
It's more or less like an ERC20 token. Like you have an indexer and you have a balance, like a hash map. Like I think you have it in both cases.
And that changes for the upgrade. Sorry, I don't understand.
Well, what you have to store is like there is a reward pool that can be activated for every indexer, and that means okay, money now goes to the reward pool, and that results in the indexer address colon and the number of tokens that are in the reward pool and can be withdrawn. That is more or less the same state that you have to store for an ERC20 token balance for an address.
Okay, so it's not what.
Yeah, it's not that much, but I think it's not a problem. But it's included in both cases. I think. In the end, yeah, it will never go away. I don't think that I would call it state bloat. It's just necessary then.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that the rewards destination address, which was added storage for JIP 2, would not be necessary for JIP 4. If that's the case, then that makes sense. I wasn't sure what that would look like in the JIP 4 scenario.
I haven't looked at the implementation for JIP 2, but for JIP 4 there will be maybe more contracts deployed even.
Oh no, not more contracts! Ah!
I was looking at this JIP 4 source code today and I saw some interesting detail. You have this rewards pool, and you tell when closing the allocation that the rewards should go to the rewards pool, and then it said okay, so no money coming in, 28 days storing period, sets the block number at which the money can be finally withdrawn, this like withdraw method. And when in between, like in these 28 days, the indexer closes another allocation, and there's money coming like added to this reward pool. Let's say after 27 days, the indexer closes his allocations, and he makes the same amount of money than in the last 28 days before that. Then he basically extends the storing period, in my understanding.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
New money coming in, half the money in the rewards pool is now subject to 28 days storing period, so that he will have to wait like another 2 weeks. So
yeah, it always does the average.
I'm not sure.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah,
That's like another interesting detail that many people probably will not understand.
You know what's the biggest problem with that approach is that when you have multiple subgraphs to allocate against, you will have multiple allocations closing absolutely randomly, and the rewards are sent based on allocation, and it will continuously expand and thaw in period like forever. But it's something that I have to test myself before I actually.
I don't think it's extending forever. I was thinking this, and I was going into this call like complaining about this, but I think it's not extending forever because, as I said, like after 28 days you close allocations again, then you have double the money there, and then you basically reduce the storing period of your new rewards to half. So if you continuously close every 28 days, then you will be able to withdraw the first rewards after 6 weeks. So when we get there in June, then we will be able to withdraw maybe in July.
Oh god. Yeah. That's a fair point to make. Yeah, I totally forgot about the way the thawing period works, but I will have to dive into the contract a bit more. But if it works the same as it does right now, like by default, I believe it makes the average of the blocks where you delegate, like between the blocks that you unstaked and the blocks that your reward, like the unstake becomes liquid, and then the more you unstake, the more it makes that average on and on again. And yeah, I could definitely, like, if you have non-synchronous allocations, like for example you allocate today to something, like in 3 days to something else, and so on and so forth, you will eventually end up like continuously withdrawing and making an average and another average and another average. And yeah, basically what Coin said.
But eventually this average will go down to like 1 day or so.
Yeah, eventually, but
not close for 1 day.
You don't know how much that will take. That's the problem. And if you allocate manually, like we do now with one subgraph, let's say you just want to allocate towards like 5 subgraphs, and you allocate manually based on yeah, and it's terrible. And yeah, Jim said Jim pointed an interesting thing here. It's a nightmare for tax management. But hey,
Well,
at least we can be happy.
Also, when we wanted to...
Go ahead.
Also, when we want to start doing some like tooling, like artificial intelligence, to continuously optimize our allocations, then we're basically completely lost there, I guess.
Yeah, we should be at least happy that it doesn't use the same logic for us for the delegation and undelegations. Basically, when you undelegate, it resets the period entirely. if it does that on the indexing side, we'd be fucked. Pardon my French.
Well,
like,
this has kind of been helpful for helping me decide what I plan to do, and I think I'm confident now that I will just unstake and get all my rewards and take the 28D bite, and I think that'll be worth it in the long run. So yeah, I'm kind of set now.
But you can still become our delegator then.
yeah, we'll welcome you with our open hands.
I mean, I think that if I time things properly, that even if I don't have 100K in rewards right now, I would be able to get 100K and re-index. The only problem is that now my delegation cap is going to be much smaller. So if I point my existing GERT, to myself as a delegator and set 100% indexing rewards, then that's just going to look a little bit different. So, or start 2 indexers. I don't know.
Then you'll have double the OPEX costs.
Yeah, I know.
And it will basically bury you when you will have to allocate towards like tons of subgraphs.
Yeah.
And also you can't, like, you can only do that if you have basically, like, if you take out your rewards and use another wallet to stake them, you cannot do it. You cannot have multiple indexes on the same vesting contract, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd have to use a different address.
Yeah, Jim, I'm talking from experience. Thank you. It's terrible, mate. We have to, like, we will have to pay like almost half of our rewards pool at some point to allocate like all the subgraphs. Yeah, it's gonna be a nightmare. But
can we still prevent it somehow? Is there, like, can we move to, or everyone moves to Polygon now, right?
I
Can we
would
just
not.
make a bridge to
I
Polygon
would
and
not
deploy the staking
want.
contracts there?
No, I would not want to move to Polygon because it's not as secure as Ethereum. But maybe, just maybe, we can see if optimism works properly, and probably use that instead of like just moving the entire network on L2. Any thoughts about that, or I guess we can leave that for the next meeting for next week, because it's a really interesting topic I want to discuss, given that the optimism mainnet is approaching. So with that said, I think we can wrap this up. It's almost time anyway. So is there anything else you guys want to discuss in this last minute, or should I wrap it up?
Thanks for hosting.
I guess we're wrapping it up. All right. Thank you everyone for joining the office hours. And hope I will see you guys next week as well. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Thanks. It was fun.